We're 2 days away from the debate. We'll be chatting with him about that, too. Right, Brian?
Yep. Let's bring in now the President of the United States, President Donald Trump. Mr. President, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you.
Mr. President, they said on a conference call yesterday, you said over the last 3 weeks you have a different feel for the campaign. You really feel like you're going to win now. What changed?
Well, a lot of things. It's just going very well. I think he's imploding. You look at all the corruption in his family. It's tremendous corruption. Nobody's ever seen. I mean, that laptop, nobody has ever seen anything like that. He's gone into hiding. He's done the lid again. He's been there for a long time, and things are changing fast, and the numbers at the polls are looking really good, really, really good.
Mr. President, you bring up Hunter Biden's laptop. Many on the left and many in the mainstream media are suggesting this is nothing but a Russian disinformation campaign. What do you say to that?
It's just crazy. I saw Shifty Schiff yesterday get up, say this is Russia. Yeah, I mean, he's a sick man. He is so sick. It is. We went through 2.5 years of that plus. And this guy, he ought to be put away, or he ought to be, something should happen with him. I watched him look straight at the camera and say it, and he laughs at it. They laugh in the back rooms at it. And thank goodness we have John Ratcliffe that came out, the head of DNI. He said it's absolutely false. There's nothing to do with Russia, and it never did have to do. This was like with Tulsi Gabbard and Jill Stein when Hillary Clinton said about them. This is after the Russian hoax on me, that they were agents of Russia. And you know what? I don't know either of them. They were not agents of Russia. They never spoke to anybody from Russia. It was the same thing. Adam Schiff ought to be investigated for what he does. He stood up, he looked at the camera, and he said the laptop conceived and dedicated by Russia. This is crazy.
Well, this is a part of the interview that probably will not be played on other networks because they're not really covering this. But what if the names were changed? What if it were your name instead of Joe Biden's involved in this, or one of your son's names instead of Hunter Biden? Would this be the top story on every single network?
Well, it would be. And they went through and put my son in particular over a 15-minute meeting with somebody from Russia who met with everybody in Congress over the years. Everybody knew that it was a meeting about something totally different, and Don Jr. went, and it's so unfair. What they have done is what they've done to this country, and we're really hitting them back. I mean, we're hitting them back so hard. And I'll tell you, I watched your interview with Dave Rubin. That's true. That's happening all over. It's so nice. That's happening all over the country. I mean, people are in love. And what you said about Texas, don't worry about Texas. Texas is with us. They want to take away your guns, your oil, and your God. Okay, that's what they want. They want to take away your Second Amendment. They want to take away fracking and oil. They don't care. They want to take it away. They want to go to the Green New Deal. That's not for Texas. Texas is not going to be losing their guns, and they're not going to be losing their oil, and they're not going to be losing their religion or their God.
Mr. President, so your next chance to bring this up directly with Joe Biden will be at the debate on Thursday night. And among the categories is national security. That would be your option to bring this up. Now, people in the past, presidents in the past have had siblings or relatives that are problematic. Roger Clinton had his issues. I remember Billy Carter with Jimmy Carter's his issues. But I think this issue, what makes it relevant, is what Joe Biden had to do with this. What question do you have for Joe Biden in the debate? So people don't think it's a family issue. It's more about the vice presidential issue, some would say. How do you plan on parrying that issue?
Well, this is far bigger than Jimmy Carter. I mean, this is an issue that's, I mean, his son walked around like a vacuum cleaner. But they say right in, look, this is the laptop from hell. They say right in the laptop that, the big man has to get 10%. And then in another case, they say 50%. This is 100%. And even if he didn't get, and he does get, and he lives like a king, even if he didn't get all of this money, and everybody's known this in Washington for a long time. This isn't surprising. Nobody's surprised by this. But even if he didn't, you can't go to China and have the son walk out with $1.5 billion to manage. You can't go to Ukraine and have him get $183,000 a month with a $3 million upfront payment. You can't get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife, $3.5 million, and you have no experience. You didn't have a job until your father became vice president. It's disgraceful.
What if he says, I don't know anything about this?
And the media can't cover it. The media refuses to cover it.
Mr. President, what if he just says, I don't know anything about that? That's my son's thing. I don't know anything about it. I hear Romania is coming up, too. So what if he says that's his thing? You know, he's a grown adult.
No, Romania is coming up. But they say right in there that the father's going to get 10%. Brian, you don't have to know anything about it. And to be honest with you, even if it wasn't, you can't go with your father, and every stop you make, you pick up $1 billion. You can't do that. You can't do it. But he got a kickback. You know, in the old days, they used to call it a kickback, but there's no better word. The vice president got a kickback, and everybody knows it, and they've known it for a long time.
Mr. President, Brian brings up the debates and how you'll address this in the debates. We want to talk about some of the changes to the debate format in just a moment, but one more on this Hunter Biden issue. We've addressed it. The mainstream media and many on the left are calling this a Russian disinformation campaign. You addressed that. Many of the facts now, though, are being confirmed and authorized, and some are asking, will you appoint a special prosecutor to investigate this? In fact, 11 House Republicans have sent a letter. They said the following: we request that the Department of Justice immediately appoint an independent, unbiased special counsel to investigate these issues that have been raised, as well as any corresponding legal or ethical issues that might be uncovered from the former vice president's 47 years in public office. Will you be doing that? Will you be appointing a special prosecutor?
We've got to get the Attorney General to act. He's got to act, and he's got to act fast. He's got to appoint somebody. This is major corruption, and this has to be known about before the election. And by the way, we're doing very well. We're going to win the election. We're doing very well. If you look at all of what's happening and all of the people that come in and don't come in, you take a look all around the country. And with Texas early voting, those are our votes, too. And we're doing well in Texas. I mean, I just got a report. We're doing great in Texas, but we're doing great all over. But forget that. This has to be done early. So the Attorney General has to act.
Mr. President, the commission has changed the debate rules for this last debate in 2 days. They have implemented a 2-minute uninterrupted rule. So they're going to have basically a mute button. They're going to mute your microphone while Joe Biden answers for the first 2 minutes, and then mute his when you answer for the next 2 minutes. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the whole thing is crazy. This commission, I had problems with them 4 years ago where they stifled out my mic during my conversation with Crooked Hillary. And, you know, they muted my mic. They did a whole thing. They did this to me already. They modulated it at the time, and they actually had to write me a letter of apology, and they did it on purpose. Look, these people are not good people, this commission. A lot of funny things go on with them. And frankly, Kristen Welker, who I know, and, you know, I just went through Savannah Guthrie. I knew what I was getting into, and it worked out fine, but she was out of line. She was totally out of line. And so was Chris Wallace. I know you'll defend him, but so was Chris Wallace. He was terrible. It was like 2-on-1, and that was just fine with me. But at least they should admit that it was 2-on-1. And the funny thing is, Biden doesn't even do a show. Biden won't even go on a show. He'd get killed if he ever did the show. He couldn't do Chris's show. But Kristen Welker is terrible. I mean, she is totally partisan. Her father and mother are big supporters of Joe Biden for a long time. They're supporters of the Democrat Party. And she deleted her entire account. And I was the one that told you people about Scully. Scully was no baby either, and then he got caught lying with his famous, oh, they hacked my account. You know, every time somebody gets caught, they always say they hacked my account. They said, here we go again with the hacking. So he has a problem. But Kristen Welker is far worse than Scully. But I do it anyway. I mean, I do it anyway. But this is the way it is. It's so set up. It's pretty incredible that we've been winning for so long, isn't it, when you get right down to it?
So whatever the playing field is, you're a sports guy by trade. You got to adjust to it. Having said that, and looking back at the...
That's not fair. I mean, it would be nice to have a host that can be, you know, not necessarily a contributor to the campaigns and to Democrats. It would be really nice. There are people out there that could be neutral. Kristen Welker cannot be neutral at all.
Well, having said that, and Chris said he was neutral. But just moving on to this debate,
yeah, he was neutral for who? For himself.
What's going to change for your strategy, regardless of moderator, format, mic? What's your strategy? Are you using anybody different to get you ready? And after studying and dueling with Joe Biden once already, what have you learned? What's going to change? You going to interrupt less?
Joe lies. And he lies a lot, and he'll say things that are crazy. And he'll think people are supposed to believe him. And they take ads, and they put ads in on things that never happened. Far worse than Hillary. Hillary was a much smarter person than him, but they play a much dirtier game. And she was dirty. Look, I mean, with the emails and everything else. I'm not talking about that. I mean, she was terrible.
So will you take some of your time and correct him, Mr. President?
They play a more dishonest game. They will put an ad in about something that never happened and pretend like it happened.
Will you take some of your time?
Very dirty players.
Will you take some of your time and answer the previous question like Mike Pence did, and then answer their question?
Well, look, I do my own debating. I do fine, and I do my own debating, and a lot of people said I won. If you look at the Hispanic, very interesting, they did a Hispanic population poll, and I was at 77%. And a lot of people thought, look, when somebody stands there and he lies, I like to challenge it at the time because you don't have time to go back.
Mr. President, just to follow up on what Brian's asking, though, after that first debate, there are many who suggested if you just let Joe Biden share his ideas, America might not be too keen on those ideas. In fact, Ari Fleischer last night on Hannity said the president should interrupt less. Will you change your strategy in this last debate from your first debate?
Well, I may do that. Actually, the interesting thing, they said if you let him talk, he'll lose his chain of thought because he's gonzo. And I understand that. But I also understand that as he's going down the line and issuing lies, generally it's okay to, really attack that. But there is a chain of thought that, there are a lot of people that say let him talk because he loses his train. He loses his train. He loses his mind, frankly. But look at yesterday. He walks out of a store, and the media's standing there, and they asked him, what flavor ice cream did you get? I mean, think of this.
I know.
They never asked me a question like that. I want them to someday, but they never asked me a question like that. What flavor ice cream did you get?
So just real quick, the other area in which there's foreign policy is not coming up in this unless you go there, unless you bring him there. And if you look at Joe Biden's foreign policy, he's the one whose former Secretary of Defense said Joe Biden's been wrong about every foreign policy and national security decision for the last 40 years. He's never been asked about Libya. They killed Gaddafi and they made it a terror university. He's never been asked about ISIS pulling out of Iraq and calling ISIS the JV team, at least the president did. He never answered about how China was able to build islands and militarize them, and they did nothing. When is he going to be held in account for that? Are you going to go out of your way to do that?
I will, but there's a lot to talk about in a few minutes, and this was supposed to be a foreign policy debate, and now all of a sudden we're talking about things that are not foreign policy. And frankly, it was a change that they made that was far bigger than the mute button, I mean, frankly, but they made a change, and it shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened.
All right, let's talk about your schedule today.
You know that. I mean, this was all going to be foreign policy, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they made this change. Now we're talking about other things.
All right, tell us.
It's not appropriate. Look, the commission has lost tremendous credibility. They lost it with me 4 years ago when they modulated the mic. I understood that. And you look at Bob Dole. He wrote a letter saying that he knows the people. And these are not the right people to have. And he was very nice in writing that. I must say,
Mr. President,
Bob Dole.
have you heard back from the commission? Because I know that your campaign was raising some objections about the fact that this is supposed to be a foreign policy debate, and they sent a letter to the commission. They said that they agreed to the debate, your campaign did, because you agreed to focus on foreign policy. And when you look at the topics, that's not included.
Well, we want the debate, and I know they're discussing it. And, yeah, I mean, they're talking back and forth with the commission. They want to have it be at least not fair, because it can never be fair with Kristen Welker. It's not going to be fair. But it would be like Scully or like Chris Wallace. But it would be, like somebody, there's nothing fair about this debate. But that's okay. Hey, look, Savannah Guthrie, I knew what I was getting into. I've been with her for a long time in terms of interviews. And that was crazy. I mean, she was jumping out of her seat, but it was a good interview. We got very high marks on that interview, but I thought she was totally out of control.
President Trump,
out of control.
President Trump, you've had a very busy schedule. You have a very busy schedule coming up this week. You have a rally in Erie, Pennsylvania, tomorrow in North Carolina. Vice President Pence is going to New Hampshire and Ohio, Cincinnati and Portsmouth, New Hampshire, excuse me. Let me tie this into the debates, actually. Last night or yesterday, we heard you in Arizona talking about the very stark choice Americans have between a potentially socialist future and economic recovery. But I want to bring this back to debate because you told Brian there's a lot to talk about, not just foreign policy. So in this debate this week, what do you think is the starkest contrast, the number one issue voters need to consider that's different between you and Joe Biden? We've had a lot of different issues come up, law and order, the economy, COVID, shutdowns. But what's the number one stark contrast in your mind between you and Joe Biden?
Okay, so many individual things, whether it's Second Amendment or energy or all of these things. They want to raise your taxes. I want to lower your taxes, regulations, all of that. But the bottom line, the American dream, the great American dream versus being a socialist hellhole. Because they're going to turn us into a socialist nation. We're going to be no different than Venezuela. And I'll tell you what, it can happen. It can happen. Venezuela 20 years ago was unbelievable. And now they don't have water, they don't have food, they don't have medicine. The only difference is we'd be much bigger. But that's what it is. It's the American dream versus a socialist hellhole.
And I'm sorry, Ainsley, and what specifically would you point to with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that would take us to that socialist hellhole?
Well, everything, socialized medicine. They want you to go to a hospital if you have a cold, take away your health care. They want to take away 180 million incredible health care plans that people love, I mean, you can go down a list forever. They want to take away your guns. They want to defund your police or at least radically change your police. Look what they're doing in Minneapolis. Look what they're doing in Seattle. They want to destroy your police forces and at the same time take away your guns. So you can't protect yourself.
So I understand Melania is going to join you today on the campaign trail. This is the first time we've seen her since her diagnosis with COVID.
Yeah, she's
How's she
great.
doing, and how's your son?
Really good. I'm going to Erie, Pennsylvania today, which I love. That was always a Dem stronghold, and then I came along, and we shook it up.
Yeah,
Erie is great.
You got almost 49% in Erie County in 2016.
Yeah.
Hillary got 47%. What's your message to those folks and all the folks living in the battleground states?
Well, just that, the economy is coming back so strong. Nobody ever thought. We built the strongest economy in the history of the world, and then the plague came in, the China plague. And and we are not forgetting it. And China knows that. We're not forgetting it. But the plague came in. We closed it down, saved millions of lives, and now we've opened it up. And we don't only have a V, we have a super V. We are recovering at a level that nobody else in the world has recovered. And we went down less, and we've recovered faster. And, 7.8 doesn't sound unemployment. 7.8 doesn't sound good, but I remember your show 4 months ago, they were talking about possibly having unemployment of 42%.
Right.
And we're at 7.8 and heading down rapidly.
So, Mr. President, right now with cases, you have 36 states with increase in cases. You have Europe all going up. Wales is basically shutting down. 9 cities in Paris are under restrictions, and the UK is on a virtual restriction depending on the city, depending on the time. If the numbers keep going up and we don't want to shut down again, what is the plan to live with it while staying safe from it?
Well, we are living with it, and we're having the vaccines coming out very soon. With or without the vaccines, we're rounding the turn, but we have the vaccines coming out very soon. We have the therapeutics that are incredible. I tell you what, I had Regeneron. I was not exactly feeling the greatest, and I had Regeneron. I felt like Superman a day later, and, I got better very fast, very, very fast. What they've done under this administration in terms of the FDA and getting things approved, things that would have taken Brian 2 or 3 years, I got done in 2 weeks. And the FDA has been great. They've all been great. And now the vaccines are coming out. That's going to help it. But we're doing much better than Europe. And, Europe is getting hit pretty hard. We're doing much better. And we will never shut down. We shut down. We understood the disease. We're protecting our elderly, unlike what they did in New York, where they did such a bad job, Cuomo. We're protecting our elderly. We're taking care of those because they are susceptible, especially if they have heart or diabetes or problems. But we understand the disease. No, there will be no shutdowns.
Mr. President, you bring up Governor Andrew Cuomo. He's raised some questions. He says he's skeptical of a potential COVID vaccine. In fact, if you'll take a listen, we can play it for you right now, what he had to say.
I don't believe the American people are that confident. You're going to say to the American people now, here's a vaccine. It was new. It was done quickly. But trust this federal administration and their health administration that it's safe. I think it's going to be a very skeptical American public about taking the vaccine, and they should be. We're going to put together our own group of doctors and medical experts to review the vaccine, and if they say it's safe, then I'll go to the people of New York and I will say it's safe with that credibility.
Governor Cuomo saying people should be skeptical of a potential vaccine. What do you say to that, Mr. President?
So he's going to put together the same group of people probably that he used to put together in the nursing homes where 11,000 people died because they put heavily infected people in with the general population. Is that the people he's going to use to help us out? No, it's not. It doesn't work that way. There's a case of a politician that's so sad. We have Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Moderna, the greatest companies in the world. This has nothing to do with government. And they've come up with incredible vaccines. And when a politician is a real lowlife, when a politician is willing to say that and kill people and scare people from using something that's going to be great and really solve a big problem, they ought to be ashamed of themselves. I mean, he probably listens to his brother Fredo. You know, Fredo has bad ratings on CNN. He probably listens to Fredo too much.
So let's talk about the confirmation of Judge Amy Coney Barrett. I know that the Judiciary Committee is going to vote today. It looks like it's going to go to the floor over the weekend. Chuck Schumer is saying this is too rushed. Listen to this.
The Republican majority wanted to jam this nomination through before the election. The Republican majority is running the most hypocritical, most partisan, and least legitimate process in the history of Supreme Court confirmations. Instead of ramming through a Supreme Court nominee in the most hypocritical of circumstances, the Republican majority should be working with Democrats on a real, comprehensive COVID relief bill.
Mr. President, what's your reaction?
So this is a process that Justice Ginsburg said a president has 4 years, not 3 years, and we're not ramming anything through. We have a lot of time. I mean, we have a lot of time, and she's phenomenal. She's become a star. The way she answered questions, the mind, her background, her intellect. I mean, she's become a major star in this country. People love her. I tell you what, if we ever didn't ram her through, as he said, we'd have a problem because people would be angry as hell. They love her. She's going to be a fantastic justice of the Supreme Court for many, many years. And all we're doing it is during my term. I mean, I'm here. Hopefully I have another 4 years. But, you know, I've had by the time at the end of the term, 300 federal judges and 3 Supreme Court justices. That's an incredible thing. That's a record. And there's never been that before. So, you know, they're unhappy, but President Obama couldn't get people through. I mean, he was unable to get people through. He was unable to do a lot of things, to be honest with you.
And we'll see how that goes because it's supposed to be a vote in committee this week and then a floor vote the next week, and she could be through right away.
It's going to go well.
In November.
It's going to go well, really well.
Mr. President, could you bring us into the play-by-play of the rescue package? It's been 91 days since any type of rescue package came from Congress that you have signed. And we know the American people are hurting. It's been so long. If you're in the hospitality industry, which you're very familiar with, they've been devastated. If you're a waiter or an actor, you've been destroyed. So now we understand that Steve Mnuchin, your Secretary of Treasury, and the Speaker have been speaking for a long time, and something could be offered as early as today. What could you tell us? Because Mitch McConnell isn't exactly on board with those negotiations.
Well, he'll be on board if something comes. But let me just explain that it's very simple. I want to do it even bigger than the Democrats. Now, not every Republican agrees with me, but they will. But I want to do it even bigger than the Democrats, because this is money going to people that did not deserve what happened to them coming out of China. Now, to just put it very simply, we want to do it, but Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to do it. We'll see whether or not she changes her mind. But we want to do it because people need help, and they should get help.
Well, she's
even
at
though
2.4.
The economy is very strongly coming back.
Mr. President, she's at $2.4 trillion, and you want to go bigger than that? John Thune says
she's at 2.2.
Okay.
And I would like to go. I would be willing to go more, because I think that, number one, I view it differently. We get the money back. The government, it gets the money back ultimately anyway. And it's better than unemployment, and it's better than all of the other costs associated with the alternative. So I want to go. I would rather go bigger than that number, but we'll see. But here's the problem. She doesn't want to do anything until after the election because she thinks that helps her. I actually think it helps us because everyone knows that she's the one that's breaking up the deal. Now, they are talking. Let's see what happens. But I would rather go bigger than her number.
Senator Thune says he doesn't want to even go close to $2 trillion. Would you pass this with mostly Democratic votes?
Thune.
Would you pass it with mostly Democratic votes?
I'd take all the votes you could get, whether it's Democrat or Republican.
Okay.
Well, even if it's
and
a smaller
you'd
number.
have a lot of Democrat votes, and you have Republican votes, too. I'm
but
okay with that.
Even if
Doesn't
it's a
bother me at
smaller
all.
number, why don't they just vote for that amount? Whatever they can agree to, a little bit is better than nothing.
Because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve anything. Look, she's made it very difficult, very, very difficult. We're talking about money going to the American people that got hurt, and they shouldn't have been hurt. This was caused by China. They shouldn't have been hurt, and we shouldn't be punishing them, and we're punishing them because of Nancy Pelosi. Now, maybe she changes her tune, and I can tell you there is a little bit of that, and that would be a very positive thing for the American people.
Mr. President, certainly stimulus for those who had their government or had their businesses shut down by the government by mandate is important, right. But helping people by opening up seems to be one of the biggest economic stimuluses we could offer. I know you've had a back and forth with Dr. Anthony Fauci over the last 24 hours. We'd love to ask you about that. But this idea that we need to open up our economy balanced against rising cases in many states, what's the right path for us right now on opening up our society?
Well, we have to open up, and we live with it, and we open up our schools, and I'm the one that got Big Ten and Pac-12 football back. You know, I got that back. That wasn't coming back, and I got it back. Hope people realize that. That was pure and simple me or whatever, but and I'm very happy. We have to open up. Now, Barron, a young man, very young, strong, he got it too. By the time I said to the doctor, how's he doing? He said, he's all better. You know, it's different. Young kids, 99.9% young kids have to go back to school. They have to get back. Now, if you look at different states, Michigan, we won the case against her. The only one that was allowed to violate was her husband, okay, the governor of Michigan. We won the case. Michigan's opening up. Got it, because you know what? The Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional what she was doing. Now, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, some other states, all run by Democrats, have to open up. I mean, look at New York. It's like a ghost town. New York, what they've done to New York, it's a ghost town.
I know we're in it.
Not to mention, all of the crime is coming out of Democrat states. Republicans are doing incredibly on crime, on opening, on economic. It's all everything coming out, crime and other problems, are in Democrat-run states. And I hope people realize that.
Let's talk about taxes, because 50 Cent says he's now going to vote for you in light of the Biden tax.
You mean the
plan.
rapper?
The rapper. Because Biden says if you make more than $400,000, I'm raising your taxes. What is your tax plan?
Well, it's much more than what he's talking about, and I mean, what he said is much worse than that. He's going to look at the Wall Street Journal. They just came out today, just in terms of life, $6,500 over a short period of time, more they're going to have to pay. My tax plan was the biggest tax cut in the history of our country. And regulation cut, but the biggest tax cut in the history of our country. He wants to violate that. That would take away child tax credit, $1,000 a child. It would take away $2,500. It would take away, you know, something that will happen if they ever did it, energy. Energy, look at you, you're buying $2 a gallon gasoline now. Nobody thought that was possible. That will go to $5, $10. You won't even be able to buy a car. You'll go into a depression the likes of which this country has never seen, at least since 1929. Who knows? That was a pretty bad one, in all fairness. But if he gets in, what they will do is everything, it'll be a disaster. They're going to double, triple, quadruple your taxes. They actually say we're going to quadruple. To spend it on the Green New Deal, this ridiculous Green New Deal, which makes no sense, designed by AOC plus 3, that had nothing to do, didn't even study the environment. Now they're telling us,
right,
about the Green New Deal. No. What they're doing is crazy. And their taxes will quadruple. They're going to take your guns away. The whole thing is crazy. The whole plan is crazy. This is the only candidate I've ever seen that runs on the basis that they're going to raise your taxes.
And, of course, AOC is not the candidate, but he does say his energy plan is the framework. It was based on the new Green Deal by Senator Markey and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which includes retrofitting, I think, every building in the country to make it more environmentally friendly. And I imagine that they're going to go to the Pentagon to take some of that money because it's just not going to be anywhere else.
So they want to take a building and they want to make the windows from nice windows to little windows. Oh, that's just fine. That was my business. I know all about construction. That's wonderful. Let's take your windows out and make them tiny little windows because you're going to save 2 cents on energy. These people are, this is the most important election in the history of our country. And people have to get out and vote because what they want to do is crazy. We will never allow this country to become a socialist nation, and that's what they're trying to do.
Mr. President, if I may, I'd love to return to the coronavirus pandemic for one more moment. I want to ask you about this back and forth you had yesterday with Dr. Anthony Fauci. It's certainly a doctor, a scientist's job to give you their impression, their opinion on what should be done. It's a president's job to balance all the competing interests. But the American people seem to trust Dr. Fauci in many of the things he said, and yet you guys have had a rough back and forth. At least over the last 24 hours, you suggesting if you'd listened to Dr. Fauci, 500,000 people would have died. Why the back and forth with Dr. Fauci?
No, I get along with him very well. He's a Democrat. He's actually a very good friend of the Cuomo family. But he's been there for a long time. I leave him there. And he's a nice guy. But he's been wrong. First of all, he said don't wear masks very strong. I'm sure you have that clip. He said don't wear masks. He said many things. He said let the people from China that are heavily infected, let them come in. He admits that he was wrong on that, and he admits that I saved thousands of lives. And it's good if people trust him, but it's not that the people, reporters like him because they think he's against me. He's not really against me, but he did say something that we kept him off television, and yet we allowed him to do 60 Minutes the other night. He couldn't do it without our approval. So how do we keep him off television? But by the way, do 60 Minutes. Look, he's a nice guy. He's got a really bad arm, not a good baseball thrower, but he's a nice guy. The only thing I say is he's a little bit sometimes not a team player, but he is a Democrat, and I think that he's just fine. It's a view. We have others. Scott Atlas is fantastic, but they go after him so much. He has a different view. By the way, everybody has a different view, different views on everything. Doesn't mean they're wrong or they're bad people, but people have different views.
But to be clear, Mr. President,
ultimately I make the decisions.
Of course.
And we've saved millions of lives by the decisions I've made. We closed up our country in the midst of the greatest economic boom in history and saved millions of lives. Now it's opening. So we did the right thing. And we're doing much better than Europe, and we're doing much better than everyone else. And our recovery is the strongest in the world.
But to be clear, Mr. President, are you and Dr. Fauci at odds? You said you were not,
no,
but you
I'm not at odds. I like him. I think he's a terrific guy.
All right, Mr. President, let's talk about law and order, because that is something that we're all thinking about this day and age. In these democratic cities, you have like Portland and you have Seattle, New York City. We've seen riots take place, protests take place. If you win and the people who did not vote for you go out in the streets and we see a lot of what we saw a few months ago, how do you plan on handling that? Because it worries people and businesses are at stake.
They shouldn't be worried. We're for law and order, and if we win, they'll be exhausted. They've had it. They'll be exhausted. They've been.
What if they're not? What if they're not?
I won last time, and they spied on my campaign, and they tried to overthrow the president. And if it wasn't me, with phony stories like Russia, 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 and now here goes Schiff again, Shifty Schiff again. You know that the laptop was done by Russia. the Biden laptop was conceived of and done by Russia.
Right.
I mean, people get it. I mean, you got to understand what this is. These people are, I don't even say sick. They're horrible, horrible liars. It's a terrible thing. Schiff is a danger to our country. Fortunately, we have a DNI director, John Ratcliffe, who's a fantastic man, and he put that out very, very quickly. He's in charge of the whole ball game, and he put it out very, very quickly. No, they are exhausted. If we win, they're going to be exhausted. And it's going to come together. You know what brings it together? Success. And we were coming together. I've explained this over the last few months. We were coming together so beautifully. The best employment rates and unemployment rates, African-American, Hispanic-American, Asian-American women, diplomas, no diplomas, MIT plus and no MIT plus. Everybody was doing great. And we were getting calls from, let's say, the other side, people that you would least expect. How do we get together? And I was saying it to them, and it was all great. And then the plague came in from China, and we had to go back to the drawing boards.
Right.
But success was bringing it together, and we're going to have that success. Next year is going to be a very successful year, unless somebody comes in and raises your taxes by 4 times and more.
Right.
That's going to kill it.
So
everyone's going to leave. All these companies that I brought back in because of the taxes, they're all going to go back to where they came from. They're all going to leave our country.
So Kirstie Alley was on with Sean Hannity last night, and she came out and says, I'm going to support President Trump again. And she got all this type of backlash and personal attacks. Here's what she said.
I like that Trump has a lot of energy. I like that he has more energy than any human being I've actually ever seen. And I think that the big thing that I was mentioning in that tweet was that I'm really tired of career politicians. I'm tired of paying people to do nothing and take way too long to do it.
And she got blowback. Your thoughts?
Well, I think she's great, and I've always liked her. And I just think she's got courage. She's Hollywood. She did very well in Hollywood, by the way, really well. But I think she's great, and I think she has great hair, okay?
Right. And, Mr. President, just to follow up, when you look at your election now, where you're at in 2016 and where you're at in 2020, a lot of people see a lot of similarities in the big picture. Considering everything that's gone on with the pandemic, the impeachment, Facebook, Twitter, would this be a bigger, harder win than your first one if you're able to pull it out?
No, it's easier, and we're way ahead of where we were, by the way, especially when you see numbers that are coming in. And we know now for a fact we're way ahead because numbers are coming in. No, look, this election was over until the plague came in from China. We were so far ahead. The economy was the best ever. You know that. I mean, you know that. But this election was over. Then the plague came in, and it affected this country, and it affected many other countries. Look at other countries where a leader was doing a good job, and, the plague came in, and many of those people are gone. Not their fault. They're gone, or they were hurt, or they were, not the same. I had to go back to work, and I've gone back to work, and we've done an incredible job, both with COVID. We saved millions of lives. The press doesn't want to give us credit for that, just like they cover up for Biden's incompetence and for Biden's theft and all of the things that have gone on. They don't want to give us any kind of credit, but that's okay. We are doing great. The reason this is easier because we have a great track record. If we didn't have a great track record, I wouldn't even be talking to you right now.
Mr. President, I know you probably already heard Rush Limbaugh talking about his cancer progressing yesterday. I listened to it last night. Just in case the audience hasn't heard it, let's play a little bit of it.
It's tough to realize that the days where I do not think I'm under a death sentence are over. It's a blessing when you wake up. It's a stop everything and thank God moment.
So, Mr. President, who's the next voice for conservatives when it comes to radio?
Well, before we even talk about the next voice, there's never going to be a voice like Rush.
I know.
Rush was with me. I didn't know Rush at all. I wasn't really into this world. I was doing other things, and I didn't know Rush. But I heard about his 39 million people, the biggest anywhere and the most powerful and all that. but I didn't know him. And all of a sudden, I started getting word that there's this man, Rush Limbaugh, who's so supportive of you. From the day I came down the escalator, he was supportive of me. I didn't have to talk to him. I didn't have to meet with him and wine him and dine him. He was just with us because he liked what I was saying. And I became friendly with him. He got the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the biggest award you can get, that and the Congressional Medal of Honor. And Rush is an incredible man. His wife, Catherine, incredible people. And he is putting up a fight like, this has been going on for a long time. I mean, he didn't have exactly a great prognosis when he heard about it. And this is now taking it to the next level, what he said yesterday. But he is an incredible man. And that's very sad to hear that. However, he will continue to fight. That's the one thing I know about him. He's incredible.
So, Mr. President, from here on in, there you got 14 days left. Your camp says you're going to have a minimum 2, as many as 5 events a day in order to get this victory. Do you believe that there's going to be one in these next 14 days, or do you believe to a degree that this is done already?
I think we're in great shape. I mean, I really do. You've seen it, Brian. You've seen it, and by the way,
I see the crowds, Mr. President.
On your show, everyone, you're doing great, and Will, you're doing great on Saturday.
Thank you.
Good to have you there.
But Mr. President,
really good.
I see the polls like North Carolina dead heat, Arizona trailing a little, Florida a couple of points off, Michigan 8. What are you seeing?
So we're up in Florida, way up. We're up in North Carolina. All you have to do is look at the numbers. I mean, we're way up, or we're up, but I think we're substantial. Pennsylvania's pretty even. We got a ruling yesterday that was ridiculous, where they can count ballots after the election's over. What kind of a thing? So what does that mean? We're going to wait.
Roberts.
We're going to wait till after November 3rd and start announcing states? It's crazy. But we got a strange ruling from the Supreme Court yesterday. It was very strange. But I think we're doing great. The rallies are rallies like in history there have never been. And I think I can say this very clearly. Many people have said it. Many of the enemy have said it. We are having rallies the likes of which nobody has ever seen before. Arizona, Michigan, no matter where we're going, North Carolina, we are having rallies. Florida, we had a rally. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. There has never been rallies with this kind of love and this kind of numbers. I mean, we're 40,000, 30,000. And sometimes we give them a one-day notice. So we end up, and you look at Biden, the other day at a rally, had 4 people show up, 4 people. They go into circles. They stand in the middle of that very nicely done circle. I have to say, the person that puts it up is very good. But no, we're having rallies the likes of which nobody's ever seen before.
Mr. President, you're in a unique position. You're in many unique positions. On Thursday night at the debate, you're going to get a chance to ask Joe Biden about core packing and Antifa, questions nobody at least has the opportunity to ask him. I hope to hear the answers. But you seemed a little disappointed earlier in the show when you said all they ever ask him about is his favorite milkshake. So after a 40-minute interview and, I don't know, 24 questions, do you want to tell us what your favorite milkshake flavor is?
Yeah, I would. And in about a year or two, when everything is so perfect, I'm going to let you answer that or ask me that question. And I'm going to give you the nicest answer. You know why? Because I'd love to have a question like that. But in the meantime, we're in the middle of a battle that we have to win. But it is very unfair when here's a guy who's involved in the second biggest scandal, because I consider spying on my campaign to be the biggest. This could supersede it, maybe. This could supersede it. But he's committed crimes. He's a criminal. He's committed crimes. And they ask him about a milkshake. What flavor ice cream do you like? I never had a question like that. And they give him the questions, and he reads the answer off computers. That's never happened to me. I mean, Brian, to the best of my knowledge, Brian, you've never done that with me. Do you agree with it?
I agree. I'm just looking through my notes here. I've never found out. Those personal choices that you make. It's usually done behind closed doors.
You have to wait another year, Brian.
Right.
Mr. President, are you nervous about Thursday?
No, I'm not nervous. Look, I've been doing it. We've been doing really well. It's very unfair. The moderator's very unfair. I know her so well. I know her so well. And it's a stacked deck. It's incredible. And I think one of the reasons that I do have a certain popularity and that we do have these tens of thousands, 25, 40,000 people showing up to rallies, I really think they appreciate the fact that I fight back. Because I'm fighting against I'm fighting the Democrat Party, the fake news media, the lamestream media, which mostly, and I congratulate you people, but mostly is on that side. Right. And nobody even knows why. And it's been like that for decades. Well, it's not, me. I may have exacerbated it because we've had victory. But, and now on top of it, big tech. I mean, you have to see big tech. You put something out, they cancel it. They cancel. Look what they did to Charlie Kirk. How good is Charlie Kirk?
They froze him.
I mean, he's sort of mainstream, but he's conservative, but he's mainstream. And they want to ruin him. These people are bad people.
And Mr. President, I have one last question for you.
Section 230. Section 230.
Yeah, I've one last question for you. I have watched 3 huge parades through Long Island, one through Fifth Avenue. And no one's organizing it. They're just organizing it through social media.
Right. And
they want you to push to win New York. I asked for the poll numbers. It says you're trailing by 20. With everyone out of the city because of what a hellhole it's become, and with this passion on Long Island and upstate New York, do you want to give a chance at do you want to give a shot at New York?
I do. I really do. And even, I don't know if you saw the other day, I was in California. Did you see the crowd in California? It was 100%. And it was massive. The police said they'd never seen anything like it. Because, look, California's run badly. New York is run horribly with Cuomo and what they do and what's happened. And a lot of people have left for Florida. They've left for other places. I think, traditionally you can't win. That's why it's very tough for a Republican to win. You can't win New York, California, Illinois. So 3 big states. All of them are run badly. And New York is run so badly. And I say, why would I lose New York? And now upstate New York, Long Island, all those areas I win by a landslide. It's only that core. And that core is rotting because of bad management, bad politics. The core of New York is rotting, and people have left. And no, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to give it a shot. They say you can't as a Republican, and it hasn't happened for many decades. But I'm going to give it a shot. I think you're 100% right, Brian.
All right, Mr. President, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
All right.